All right, welcome back. In the second part of Module 1, we're going to actually get into the practical application. So in the first part, I talked about the foundational skills. We talked a little bit about prompt engineering. And just as a heads up, I will hammer home prompt engineering because if you don't get prompt engineering right, nothing else matters. You're not going to get great results. So, the two keys to success with AI, I want you to understand this, is number one, you have to be curious. Curious about the problem, curious about the solution, curious. You need to ask questions. So, the more questions you can ask, the better. If you're ever stuck for a question, ask GPT, what questions should I ask you about this topic so that I can understand it? So, always be curious. That's number one. Number two, the better you get at communication, the better your results will be. Now, I want you to understand that communication applies to ChatGPT, it applies to your life. So if you notice, ChatGPT is really good at paraphrasing. It'll say, here's what I think you're asking for. Is that correct? If so, would you like me to proceed? What I've learned is learning to communicate with AI has helped me communicate with humans because I'm questioning assumptions. I'm not making as many assumptions and I'm filling in some gaps. So, anyways, that's the only theory I wanted to teach you now. So, I'm going to get in and I'm going to show you some content from the ChatGPT Quick Start Guide. For the record, this is going to evolve. The guide you see today is going to be very different from the guide that you will see at the end of this 12 module course. And the reason is I want to keep it up to date as we go. But I also wanted to give you something to start with. So, in the quick start guide, I talked about resources. So, I have as an appendix my perfect prompts library. I will show you that in a minute. I'll show you how that applies. And I will show you how we're going to apply the two frameworks. And you can add expert insights. I'll show you how to do that as well. And then we're going to just get some quick wins. I'll show you how to draft emails, generate content, and write SOPs. So let's jump right in to ChatGPT. And this is our quick resource guide. So as I said, here's our perfect prompts library. Okay, so let me, first of all, just walk you through ChatGPT here. So this is ChatGPT. All you have to do, if you don't have an account, is go to chatgpt.com, or you can go to, I think it's chat.openai.com, and sign up for an account. You can use the free account. If you use the free account, you're going to have to modify some of the prompts. I will explain that. But all you need to know is this is the interface. This is where you type your questions. And I want you to understand this is a conversation. It's not a, hey, do this. It's, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Can you help me? And the reason I phrase it that way is if you think of it like a conversation with a coworker, you say please and thank you with a coworker. You're talking to yourself. So why not be polite and have a little fun? And that's the key. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong because this is about discovery, it's about curiosity. A couple things, you can attach files. So if you've got a lot of background, you can attach it. You can view other tools, you can search the web, or over here, if you prefer, you can use voice mode. And these are just some starter conversation starters. So it's entirely up to you. Now over here is the interface. So you can see I'm using ChatGPT and I'm using the 4.0 model. If you're using the free, you'll see something different. If you're using the free, you'll get the GPT-4. And temporary chat means it doesn't store any of the memory. We'll get into security and all that stuff later on. Now I've got a toolbox add-on, so I get a little extra that you won't see. If you're looking to explore the world of GPTs, here is an amazing world of featured GPTs. You can find all kinds of pre-programmed custom GPTs. You'll see I've got a few of my own. And we won't talk about projects today, but you can create projects where you can store things. And then down here is the history of your conversations. So if you want to start a new conversation, you just click on this new chat and you can click here to close the sidebar, click here to open it. So I'm going to show you, and this is as simple as it is. This is the perfect prompt for problem agitate solution. So here's just an example. And it calls me professor. There's a story there. So it's giving me its thoughts on the template, and it's giving me an example. So I am offering a ChatGPT bootcamp course for military. Basically, you have a conversation. So it's giving me some examples, giving me some social media, and here it's updated it. So basically, you tell it what you like, you tell it what you don't like, and you can see it's coming up with examples for me. So now you'd normally, and we will refine this as we go. These are just to give you some quick wins. I promise you, if you're using these prompts well, you're going to get better results than if you're doing it yourself. I promise. It's just a matter of course. So use it to brainstorm, use it to draft. I will teach some brainstorming techniques. But now how might we implement the ADA framework? Now, one weird little tip, if you're pasting something in, I use a series of three quotation marks before and after, and that just helps AI delineate that that's a direct quote. Okay, so it's writing me a Facebook ad. It's writing me an email campaign. Okay. Triple quotes. And this is really cool. So as a quick win, oh, sorry, I went too fast. It's still thinking. Okay. Okay, let's just. And by the way, if you ever need to stop, you just click the little square, come up here, hit the pencil. You can edit, refine your prompt, and hit send again. I used to do iterations, but now I find if I just refine it now, it makes it easier. Excuse me. Okay. Seems to be stalled. Okay, if you ever just stall completely, go up to the bar and hit enter again. And it'll usually refresh. By the way, every conversation is unique. So if you want, you can, I use Google Docs. I'll put that link in Google Docs so that I can go back to the conversation. Or if you want, you can click this share button and you can create a link, and then you can share this document with somebody else. Now, when you share it with somebody else, they can pick up the conversation where you left off. You won't see it. And if you go back to the conversation, they won't see it. So I seem to have broken it. There we go. Oh, oh. So let's give it feedback. Um, okay. Sometimes you just got to interrupt it. Okay. Now, for the record, that was my fault. I was impatient. And by the way, I want you to notice something. This is a new conversation. It's relatively quick, it's relatively responsive, and it's fairly detailed. You will get to what I call conversation fatigue, where it starts to abbreviate, it starts to hallucinate, it starts to shorten and summarize. That's your fault. And I realize that was my fault. What you can do is ask it to summarize the conversation and then start a new one, and you'll get the quick responses and the detail again. So if you ever notice it goes from writing paragraphs to bullet points, it's starting to get to the end of its memory. So here we go. This is actually a pretty decent email template. So there's the introductory email, follow up email, and apology. And so, my number one thing, this is a big bonus tip. Um, can you help me create a list of the top 10 most likely FAQs and their answers that a veteran might have about this program specifically for. So it's really good at creating FAQs. And in my opinion, if you're in any business, I don't care what business you are, if you can take the time to figure out what are the top 10 most common questions, if you're in the sales world, you might call them objections. I don't believe in objections, so I call them questions. Um, but what are the 10 questions your clients or your prospects need answered before they can confidently work with you or to make sure they get the best result from you? And basically, as you get new questions from your prospects, as you get new questions from your clients, add them to the list. Now, here's the magic. I want you to understand the Pareto principle applies. You don't get, I don't care what you do, what business you're in, you don't get 10,000 unique questions ever. You get 10 questions asked 1,000 times each. So if you can recognize the patterns and you can start to create content, a lot of people say, oh, I don't know what to post. I don't know what content to create. I don't know what to share. Answer questions. That's all you need to do. If you can answer questions that your clients are asking, anyways, you can start to build a library. You can start to build videos. You can start to build PDFs. But magically, if you answer the questions that everybody has about your industry or your business, that becomes valuable content that people will share. And surprise, surprise, you'll get clients out of this and it'll help you with referrals. So, this is, again, I will stress over and over, you are the grown up, so it's your job to read these things and make sure they're correct. But basically, what I do is I'll take this top 10 FAQs and I will just Control C to copy it, and then I will put it in. I usually use Google Docs, but for today I'm using Word, and I'll just paste it in. I'll show you how I do that. So I'll paste it in and I use Word's default settings for layout. So I'll call that a heading one. And basically you can edit that, format it, turn it into a PDF. But it's just a nice little bonus to share with your clients so that they get the answers they need. So let's just double check. I showed you how to generate professional emails. I showed you how to create content. I showed you the frameworks. Now I'm going to write an SOP, and honestly, I'm going to undo that because I don't need it. SOPs are my big win because that's how you scale. Okay. So now I'm going to get more detailed based on my stuff. So if I'm writing an SOP for something, I'll normally say, here's what I do. First and foremost, is this the most efficient? Second of all, what recommendations do you have for me? But as you'll see, it created an SOP for sending monthly newsletter. Now, this is wonderful if you use software. I use Simplero to run website, and you create an SOP for it. So if you use software, we'll let it do its thing. And by the way, you will learn as the course goes. This is a bad idea, asking it to do three things at once. So normally I would say, please create an example SOP for sending a newsletter. Number two, create this. And number three, create this. I'm showing you three at once just because number one, I know I can. But number two, the conversation is still fresh. It's not huge. So it's relatively quick. If you're slowing down, again, I recommend please create a SOP for handling customer complaints, go through it, give it feedback, and then the next. I'm just going fast in the interest of demonstration. But here is, I'm asking it for an SOP specifically on how to use my software. And I love it because it tells me what tools are needed. It tells me the procedure, and it tells me, it's even giving me a plan over how long to take it. One thing, take this with a grain of salt. I love that AI tells me it takes days. With AI and with these procedures, I can usually collapse a day's worth of work into about an hour. And you can even create an SOP for writing a newsletter, but you can see this is all about sending a newsletter. And if you're not a big fan of SOPs, for our military families, I hope you are. If you're not, get used to it. I used to think they restricted my freedom. They limited my creativity, but the reality is they enable my freedom, they enable my creativity, and they allow me to be able to delegate to other people. So we're going to talk a lot about eliminate, automate, delegate. This is your first step, is learning to use ChatGPT to figure out how to eliminate, automate, or in this case, delegate. So I'll see you in the next module. We've covered a few things in module one. In module two, we're going to jump into the eliminate, automate, delegate framework. Thank you.